I'm Chandler Morrison, and this is Playoff. Welcome into Playoff-ology. I'm Chandler Morrison, alongside my co-host,
John Boston.
John Boston. He can remember his name, folks. It's a great thing. We hope that this show is fun, but we also hope the show is informational. That's what me and Chris tried to do when we opened up SCTM Preps, was to have an outlet, really, for high school football in the Chattanooga area, which I don't think we had that kind of outlet before. I know John's kind of been following us for a while. He's been with us for about 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when you look down the barrel at what we've done at SCTM Preps, we've really created this culture of, let's talk about high school football and let's talk about it on a real level. Because I think a lot of the media outlets around us, not to say anything bad about them, but just because of the nature of their business, they just end up kind of maybe sometimes not being real, kind of being, calling this story, not following this story. And we want to follow the interesting stories.
Here's the thing, too, Chandler. People get in their car, they go to work, they can turn on their phone and listen to. They can't. Well, they can, but I wouldn't recommend reading a newspaper while driving.
I just want to see John. I think he speaks from experience on this, honestly. I don't know. But that's the experience we have. And the reason we started Playoff-ology was last year I kind of saw this need for people who didn't really understand how the playoffs are going to happen. I talked to a lot of people, and they're like, well, I don't know. This person might be in. This person might be in. This person might be in. And I'm like, well, if you look at the way the II-AAA does stuff, it's not as complex as it used to be. Mm-hmm. Before this whole region mess, when we were in districts, it was crazy. I could go into that. We could have a whole other episode just on the matrix and all this other stuff that was going on. It was crazy. Not like blue pill, red pill matrix. I'm talking about like it was literally a 32-point matrix you followed for every team in the state in that classification. It was crazy, and it caught all the tiebreakers and all that. Anyways, we started this show to keep this as simple as possible. And so we're going to get right into the playoff projections here, John. And we're going to start with 1A. I hope you can see that over there, right, John?
Yeah.
We got a screen in here, so we're actually looking a little bit professional today. So let's start with Class 1A here. There's really no change. I did want to go through just about every playoff. I want to go through every playoff bracket that we had an area team in this week, because I think it's crucial that everybody understands where they're standing going into the last week. South Pittsburgh securely in first place. Mm-hmm. Copper Basin securely in second place. Now, they play each other, right? Or did that game?
No, it's this week.
It is this week. Mm-hmm. They play each other, so there's a chance that Copper Basin could get the 1 seed. I don't see it happening. That's why we project. This is not our, this is not us looking at this and saying, oh, well, if the season ended today. No, this is us looking and saying this is who we project. I project that South Pittsburgh, basically at this point, last week of the year, John, it's a lot of who's going to win this game. Because ultimately there are a lot of games, we'll talk about this later, that whoever wins that game gets this seed, or they make the playoffs, or they get the 1 seed, or they get a home playoff game. So that's what we're going to see a lot. Copper Basin and South Pittsburgh play, so I'm just projecting, and I don't think you're going to have any disagreement with this, John, that South Pittsburgh is going to win that game against Copper Basin, especially with Bryson Grabowski being out. Although I don't think it's as fun a playoff bracket in 1A without him being there, because I think that Clay County matchup could potentially be a great matchup. You get Gordonsville in the second round. I'm not so sure that they wouldn't play a close game with Gordonsville if Grabowski's there. No. I think it would be a good game. The only thing about this, John, I'm projecting Whitwell wins that game, and we probably disagree on this, but I'm projecting that Whitwell wins that game against Lookout Valley. I just score watching, looking at how things have fallen down. I know it's hard to say. Whitwell, they've not won a game this year, have they? It's hard to say, but they could win one game.
Yeah, they did last year.
And be in the play. They did last year. So, to me, I've got Whitwell in there. I think they're a better team than Lookout Valley. I think they can beat Lookout Valley. Now, if they lose this game, they're out, and my projections are off here. But that's what I'm looking at as of this current moment. Of course, Sell Creek at number 3, they have been on fire until this game against South Pittsburgh that was 84-8, and I still can't get over that score. That's the most I have ever found that South Pittsburgh has scored in a game in their history. Unless someone else come out with another stat, 84 is the tops.
And that reminds me of the, was it Georgia Tech and the Cumberland college game? It was like 222 to nothing. that's kind of like the equivalent of college to high school.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is, John. And I mean, it's one of those things where, it's it's crazy. Your thought on Whitwell Lookout Valley? I know you had a different opinion than I did.
I think Lookout Valley. Yeah, I think they're going to win. Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't surprise me to see Whitwell in there. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably one of the most evenly matched games of this week. But like you said, a bunch of the games this week we're down to, like if you win you're in. If you win you get first. The games determine who's first seed, second, who goes on, who goes home.
Yeah.
So this week's got to be the best week.
It has to be. I mean, it's what you want if you're in high school football. Let's go ahead and go to Class 2A here. This is Regions 1 and 2. We're going to briefly go over this one. Meigs County, number 1 seed in Region 2. No surprise there. Really no surprise on the other side. This bracket has pretty much been the same. There's been one change with Oneida and Rockwood. I did not see the Rockwood win over Oneida. So Oneida and Rockwood just basically changed places, and they're now the 2 and 3 seed. Now you said, I think you had said, did you say that Oneida had a game this week that had been?
It was a COVID. Well,
was it this past week?
It was it's week 11. Let me just double check.
Now was it a COVID win on them or their opponent?
COVID win for their opponent.
So they had
Oneida
the COVID
had
case.
COVID. Yeah.
So that could potentially be something to watch for, because what do they have to be out? 2 weeks, John? I believe it's 2 weeks. And now if you're in week 11 and you have a game next week against Hampton, does that go down as a forfeit?
I would say so.
So, this is what
you're in the play. You can't
make that game up.
No.
The only thing you could do is if it could potentially be played on a Saturday.
Yeah.
If I think there have been some situations this year where we've seen a game that was scheduled for a Friday to give them that extra day because the COVID case was found on a Friday 2 weeks prior, they move it to a Saturday. Now, that could be the case with Oneida. Who knows when this, we don't follow Oneida very, very closely here. So we don't know when they got this COVID case, but that's potentially one of the first ones I've seen where someone in the playoffs, they get a COVID case, and now they had to forfeit their playoff run this year because of a COVID case. And I think it's different in season because you have so many games in season, but that could potentially be an issue there. And let's talk for a second about let's stay in Class 2A for a second. Let's go to Regions 3 and 4. That's where a lot of our area teams are at. Bledsoe County, number 1 seed. No surprise there, no change. Excuse me. Marion County at number 2. They both beat Tyner. And by the way, Tellico, no matter what happens, they're in the playoffs. Tyner, they have to win against Polk County to stay in the playoffs. Now, I say this because if Tyner loses, they will have one. If Tyner loses, I believe they have one region win at that point.
Yeah, they do.
And Tellico would have one region win, and Polk County would have one region win, and it's a 3-way tie. Because Tyner has played a tough schedule and they've had games canceled, John, I want to mention this. Tyner actually has a worse overall record than Tellico Plains does at that point if they lose that game to Polk County. So our first tiebreaker, and we'll talk about this all night, our first tiebreaker in TWSA football when you have a 3-way tie is you go through and you look to see who has the best overall record. And Tyner would not have the best overall record, so they would actually get booted out in that situation, and Polk County would get into the playoffs there because then it becomes the reason that happens is because then you break the 3-way tie. Tellico is clearly above everybody else. Then it's between Tyner and Polk County, and I don't see this happening, John, but I'm just telling people how this could happen, and this is a potential possibility if just Tyner just completely just blows up at the end of this. Because you have a tiebreaker between Tyner and Polk at that point, Polk has a tiebreaker over them because they would have won that game. So that's potential to look out for. I don't think it'll happen, but it is out there. Stick with it. On the other side of this, Watertown plays Tellico Plains. Marion County with a favorable matchup against Westmoreland. Cascade in a 3-way tie. I forget who they're in a 3-way tie with. I think it's Jackson County and East Robertson. That's the two, I believe. They could potentially be in a 3-way tie. I think that's the way that could work out. And I see Cascade. I think they would have the tiebreaker there. The way I figured it up, I had to go through it, and that was the longest I had spent on one of them.
Cascade's got the easiest game out of those three. Cascade's got Westmoreland. Jackson's got.
They got the easiest road. That's why we project. That's why I projected them. I should say.
Jackson's got Trisdale, and East Robertson's got Watertown. So
So you got the two top dogs in that region. You're having to play the other two teams, and Cascade gets an easier game. So I see them winning that and going forward to that 4th seed. Trousdale County, number 2 seed against Tyner. If Tyner were to win that game against Polk County, which I think they will, they'll be matched up against Trousdale County, and that's a matchup that is usually reserved for the quarterfinals. So that is something interesting to note here, that it would be in the first round. Any comments on this bracket, John, before we move on?
I got the same thing you got on that one.
Okay.
I
think you're going to have a lot of comments on this next one.
Yeah. Before we get going, like I said last week, that Marion County Westmoreland game I've got circled. I think that's going to be.
Do you see Trousdale or Watertown being? Because it was a close game. I think it was like a 9-7 game between those two. Do you see Trousdale or Water County? There's water in a county somewhere. I know that. Watertown.
But is there water in a town?
Yeah, I don't know about water in a town. Funny enough, when I was in 5th grade, they were shooting an R-rated movie in Dunlap, Tennessee. I don't know why it was R-rated. It was called Tennessee. That was the name of the movie. And our school at Sequatchie County, they actually got to participate. The middle schoolers and the high schoolers got to participate in that movie as extras. We got free pizza that day. We were out of class all day that day. And actually, they renamed. They couldn't go with Griffith because they were doing something with Watertown, Tennessee. They actually put Watertown as the name on Griffith Elementary's sign. So we were actually in a movie with Watertown, which I thought was really cool. And I had no idea Watertown was an actual team, so I started covering SETF preps, and we had to go through them every year. So, interesting story. I don't know if that applies here or not. Much love to Watertown or Water County. I don't know where you are, but it's not Water County, I would assume. If there's a Water County, I don't know of it. Anyways, Watertown or Trousdale County, who do you give the best chance to get past? Because I think what's going to ultimately end up happening here, Bledsoe County's good this year. I love them. I love what they've done this year. I just don't think their offense is enough to get them to that next level. The defense is great. Offense, I don't know. I think it's going to be Trousdale and Watertown. Who do you see in the quarterfinals? Who do you see getting past the quarterfinals in a Trousdale-Watertown matchup?
Trousdale. I got Trousdale.
Even though Watertown beat them earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm. I think that rematch is going to, it's going to come down to.
Because I think it was a rematch last year before the Meigs County game, I believe.
It was, and it wouldn't surprise me, honestly, to see Trousdale County and Marion County in that quarterfinal matchup. I just feel like Marion County.
You think Marion County could beat Watertown?
I think Marion County can pull something out of their sleeve.
Okay.
I think, I told you earlier this year that if there's a
I'm
team.
I'm not sold on Marion County yet. I think they've got a bright future, but I'm not sold on the expectations for this year.
Yeah,
that's the word. Like every team in our area has a word that I've associated with this year. Marion County is expectations.
Yeah.
Where are your expectations? I think getting to the second round is a win for them. If they get to the quarterfinals, this could be something that we didn't expect. But I think that the semifinals, or not the semifinals, the second round is really their ceiling this year. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it probably will be. But if there's a team out of that region there that gets past the second round, I think it's going to be Marion County.
Okay.
I do.
All right. Okay. I'm there with you. Like I said, much love to Bledsoe County.
Yeah.
Trousdale County is tough.
And
if you get past Trousdale County, you're going to turn around. You're probably going to be playing Watertown again. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it. I got some much love for my Bledsoe County people, Bradley Hargis, Mike Smith over at the radio show. I love you to death. And the cowbell that y'all have during the radio shows. You've not seen these stories, but I've done radio for Sequatchie County for years, and I've come into contact with them a lot. They are wonderful people. I love them. I love Bledsoe County, but I just don't see them getting past the second round here. Let's before I get in trouble saying something. The big note here is Grundy County. I've not moved it over here for John. The big note here is Grundy County. Sequatchie, and let's talk about this. Sequatchie County went from being the 3 seed 2 weeks ago to being out of the playoffs completely. And that strictly comes down to losing to York. Was it last week? Mm-hmm. On the road.
The week before, yeah. Grundy was this past Friday, and York was the week before.
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, they go to York. They're on the road. They lose to York. And I'd say it's a blowout. It was not even close. No. They go this past week. They go play Grundy County at home. It's senior night. You want to get a win on senior night. You can't always get a win on senior night. Sometimes it's an Upperman game for Sequatchie County. They lose. What was the final score? 25-19? 25-19. And that was pretty much what it was. I mean, that was pretty much the score in the second half.
Yeah. Not
much change. I think that was that the score at halftime?
No, I think Dunlap was down by 2 touchdowns at halftime. I think it was 25-13 or 25-12 at half.
Yeah, I mentioned that because Grundy County hasn't made the playoffs in a while, and barring a super miracle upset for Sequatchie County over Upperman, or who does Grundy have this week? I think they had Smith County. Cannon's got York. Something happens in there. It could possibly happen, of course, but I don't think it will.
I don't see how Sequatchie will be able to get back in it.
No, I don't either. Grundy County has not beaten. Here's some stats for you. Now, I've said these on the episode yesterday of SCTM Preps. Grundy County has not beaten a team on the field in its own classification since 2017. Grundy County gets its first win over Sequatchie County since 2014. That's the year after I was in high school. First road, because it's the fall. First road win against Sequatchie County since 2002. And by the way, the last time they beat Sequatchie County, I believe they made the playoffs. So Grundy County hasn't gone to the playoffs in a while. I think it's been since 2015 was the last time they went to the playoffs. Now, this is monumental. I hate it for them because look who they get in the first round. It's a team by the name of Loudon. Now, by the way, I want to preface this by saying this should be the final, when you talk about Region 3-3A, this should be how the final bracket looks. 4-3A, pretty much settled, okay? 3-3A, not so much. Loudon did not play last week against Walker Valley because they didn't have COVID cases, but they did have kids that were in contact, right, John?
Contact, exposed,
and were exposed to
on
the football
team.
If
they tested positive, I don't know if you have.
I haven't heard. So here's the thing. Here's how this breaks down. I want to explain this for a second. If Loudon and Red Bank play, I do think Red Bank loses that game. And Brainerd holds the tiebreaker over Red Bank. Because Brainerd would actually have a better record because I think they're going to beat McMinn Central and it's not even going to be close either. Mm-hmm. They would have a better record than Red Bank would. So they're automatically the 2 seed in this situation. Now, if this game against Loudon is not played because of Loudon, Red Bank would get the COVID win. But they would still be the 3 seed. Here's why, John. Because then it would be a 3-way tie for first place. You would have a 4-1 team, a 4-0 team, and a 4-0 team all together, and the II-AAA sees that as a tiebreaker because they always go by region wins. This year, we have not had the same number of games played and contests that count toward a result. So, here's the interesting thing. I talked with the II-AAA, here in the past 2 days. I've had emails with them trying to figure this out. If it goes to a tiebreaker, if that game does not get played and it goes down as a COVID win for Red Bank, it's a 3-way tie. Okay? Loudon has the best record, right? So Loudon is out of that tiebreaker. So now it's just a tiebreaker between Red Bank and Brainerd. Brainerd has the tiebreaker over Red Bank. And John's looking at this on here, and he can't believe it either, probably. Brainerd has the Red Bank Brainerd has the tiebreaker over Red Bank.
You're getting excited.
I'm getting excited. Has the tiebreaker over Red Bank. Why do they have the tiebreaker over Red Bank, John?
Educate me.
Because they have a COVID win over Red Bank. Because they never actually played that game this season. Because remember, Red Bank had 2 rounds of COVID that they had to, they missed 2 games here, 2 games here. So, either way you shake this out, this is how it's probably going to look. Because whether that game gets played or not, this will be. I see how it looks because Red Bank is probably not going to be Loudon. I could see it. It'll be a tight game. It'll be tighter than last year. I still think Loudon is better than Red Bank at this point. If Loudon wins, if Red Bank wins, okay, then Loudon doesn't have that fourth win, right? They get that loss, okay?
They already have fourth.
Or they don't have the fifth win, I should say. So what that would put Red Bank at how many wins?
Put Red Bank 4-0 and Loudon at 5-1.
5-1. Wait.
Oh no,
4-1. And it would put Brainerd at 4-1.
If Brainerd wins.
Okay. So then, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I might be wrong about this. Then that's another three-way tiebreaker because 4-1, 4-1, and 4-0 are all a tiebreaker in the II-AAA's mind. This is what I got from an email today. That is in the II-AAA mind a tiebreaker because they go by region wins, not by winning percentage. Even though a 4-1 record is worse than a 4-0 record in my mind, right? It should be worse than a 4-0 record, right? But it's not. So that's a three-way tiebreaker, okay? I'm going off the top of my head here. Loudon doesn't have the same number. They have 7 wins. They would have 8 wins at that point, right? They have 8 wins right now total, right?
Loudon, yes.
Okay. How many would Red Bank if you add a win to their total right now?
If they win this week, they'll be 7-0.
They'll be 7-0. Okay. Now, Brainerd.
If they win, it'll be 7-3.
7-3. So now you have 8-7-7. Okay. If it's 4-1, 4-1, 4-0. But here's the thing. Red Bank will have beaten Loudon, right? So we're back in that tiebreaker scenario we were a while ago. Red Bank has beaten Loudon, right? Loudon has beaten Brainerd. Brainerd has beaten Red Bank. So now we go to that tiebreaker. Loudon gets the number 1 seed again. Why?
Go on.
No, because they have the 8
Educate
wins.
me.
They have the more wins, right? I know it's complicated. I'm trying to go through this. So anyway this shakes out, even if Red Bank wins, it would go to a 3-way tie per the II-AAA. And so this is basically how it comes out every time. And this is the craziest thing to me. Now I'm getting excited about this. I'm getting too overexcited. We've done this 3 ways, 3 different scenarios. The same way it comes out because of totally different reasons, right? Because then at that point, Brainerd still has a tiebreaker over Red Bank, right? Because they had the COVID win. So Brainerd is the number 2 seed no matter how you cut this. I didn't even think about that part, John. No matter how you cut this, it ends up this way. So because my thought was I thought it should go by winning percentage. So I thought a 4-0 team would have been a better record than a 4-1 team. But II-AAA doesn't see it that way. They see those as equal records because they look at region wins. So anyways.
I'm ready for this year to be over. I'm ready to go back to
It's
normal.
exciting, though, for me because I had to figure this out. I probably spent a couple more hours than I should have trying to figure this thing out. Anyways, Brainerd gets the 2 seed. I think what's the most interesting matchup, John, in your mind on this? If this is how it comes out, first round.
I'm gonna say probably the most interesting one would probably be Brainerd New York Institute.
Okay.
And
I think that one could be really high scoring.
I think it could.
It could be a barn burner.
And I think Sweetwater and Upperman could be a good one as well.
Yeah, I'm just not so sold on Upperman this year as I have been in previous years. I don't know that Sweetwater is up to par with Upperman, but I think Sweetwater could give Upperman enough to handle, enough for 3 quarters at least.
Yeah. Upperman, I think, is what are they? 6-3,
something like that. Yeah,
I can't say the last time they were 6-3.
Let's. You got any more comments on this before we move on?
No, you made my brain hurt on that one.
And actually, I have another one I showed John here. This is what it would look like if we went by win percentage. That's how much difference. If we went by win percentage instead of region wins, Red Bank goes from the 3 seed to the 1 seed. Brainerd goes from the 2 seed to the 3 seed, and Loudon gets knocked down to the 2 seed. Y'all can't see that on the broadcast. I was just going to show. I was just scrolling through the other files we have for John. Let's talk about 4A real quick. Class 4A. Not much has changed for me, except for I think Hickson's going to get the 4 seed. Can we talk for a second about how Hickson went from obscure to now they're in the playoff conversation? Now, let's say this. Look who they got in the first round. It's not going to be pretty.
No.
Not by any means. Not by any means. But Hickson If Hickson beats East Ridge this week, and we'll talk about this later, they'll be the 4 seed. I actually project that they will beat East Ridge, and I'll tell you my reasons why here in a little bit. I think this has been the same. Anderson County, Granger, Howard, Greenville, East Hamilton, Sullivan South, Elizabethton, I think that's how you pronounce it, Hickson. Most interesting matchup here, John. I don't think Howard's got a chance against Greenville.
No.
I don't think Granger's got a chance against Anderson County. Anderson County is just great. If you want to know how great they are, go listen to yesterday's podcast on SATM Preps and go to the part we talk about Anderson County and East Hamilton because you will have some different perspective on Anderson County. Elizabeth and Hickson, I think it's going to be a blowout. I think the only interesting matchup in the first round, John, if this comes to fruition, is Sullivan Southeast Hamilton.
Yeah, I wouldn't even, it wouldn't surprise me if Sullivan South did beat East Hamilton.
It wouldn't. What was the result? I think they played Sullivan South last year in the first round.
Oh, no.
I think they did,
sure.
if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. And if they did, that would be the second year in a row they've been ousted in the first round. I want to say they did. I know they had they were kind of a rebuilding.
There's like 3 Sullivan schools in that.
So it might have been another one. Who knows? But I'm going back to 2019 right now, and I'm looking, and it was Sullivan South. They lost 28-24. It was a close game. This could be because I don't think East Hamilton is such a better school this year. But look what happened against Anderson County. Look what happened against Walker Valley. They just kind of fell apart at the end of the season there.
I'm not downgrading East Hamilton, but do you think they peaked too early?
I think they did. Here's the thing. That game against Red Bank was solid. And by the way, we can talk about this later. We'll talk about this on another episode. I think me and you need to have this conversation. Me and Chris had this. Me and you need to have this conversation about the classifications, how they're going to change next year.
Meet me outside. How about that?
How about that? Catch me outside. No. We do not endorse that heathen. Sullivan South, East Hamilton, they played that game against Red Bank. They lost that game against Red Bank. I don't think that was their peak. I think the week after they lost Haynes Eller for that game, because remember they had a game they didn't have Haynes Eller. They come back. I think the week after that they kind of peaked toward the middle of the season. If I'm looking at my schedule right now, it seems like it was maybe the Sequoia game. I know that sounds like a weird place to peak. They were peaking right around that time. They beat Chattanooga Central, Sequoia, Hickson, and then they just hit a nosedive with Walker Valley.
Well, here you got Sequoia, and then you turn around and play Chattanooga Central. You play Hickson. At that time, that was the worst 3 teams.
Yeah.
In the 3-game stretch. You think that could have thrown their, thrown the team off a little bit?
Listen, Red Bank's a good team. Your confidence gets shaken when you play a good team like Red Bank and you don't beat them. Mm-hmm. I think it wasn't disappointing, but then you get the 3 games, you build your confidence up in those 3 games, and then, boom, you lose 40-12 against Walker Valley. Boom, you lose 43-14, a similar margin against Anderson County. And now you got Howard this week just to keep your home playoff game. You got to win that game. We'll talk about that one later because 2 and 3 right now, they're not set in stone. And I don't think Howard's going to win that game, but it's not set in stone. A lot can still happen. So, any other comments on 4A? All right, let's go to 5A real quick, John. I'm going to just open up this bracket. Your initial thoughts on this 5A bracket?
I think me and you pretty much got the same. Let me pull mine up here. Yeah.
I think I moved Oak Ridge up because of some. And listen, when I go through all these projections, I go through and look at the tiebreakers too. 2 weeks out, I can't do it 3 weeks out, but 2 weeks out, I start to go look at, okay, if they were to win these 2 games, I think they'll win these 2 games. Then do they get the tiebreaker against this? And they do, and I go through all that as well. So I think Oak Ridge and Powell, I think Oak Ridge, I had them over because they would have the tiebreaker. They had the easiest road. Mm-hmm. That's what I usually look at. When we're not talking about our area teams, I usually look at the easiest road to there.
Well, I think Oak Ridge is number 2 right now, and I'm pretty sure that is set in stone.
And I actually think they beat Powell, if I'm not mistaken. They did beat Powell. That's why I had them at number 2. Now, like I said, I did these projections a day or 2 ago, so I had to go through and make sure I had everything right. I forget what I put on there between I've slept since then.
Yeah, Oak Ridge and Powell are both. They don't have any more region games coming up.
Yeah, they don't. So
they're set in stone.
Yeah, so that is pretty much set in stone. I think there's some things that could happen, but I didn't. And I should have done this on these this week. I should have done who's clinched the playoffs and who's clinched that spot. Mm-hmm. Like to do the Z and the Y. And I should have done that. I actually had it on my actual projections I did on the Playoff-ology. I just didn't have it on the graphics that you see right in front of you. And maybe next year we'll work to do that. I'll work to do that. John don't do anything on the show except blabber his mouth. I love how he just went along with that. He didn't even object. He knows. He knows his place. Anyways,
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I'm serious so I don't get fined.
Where's the sunglasses?
Ray County, Fulton, Cy Daisy, Oak Ridge, Powell, Walker Valley. I think Walker Valley. By the way, Walker Valley, Cy Daisy, they play this week. Mm-hmm. I think Walker Valley wins that game.
Do too.
By a landslide.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be close.
I think we're going to use that term you pulled out a few minutes ago. It's going to be a barn burner for one side.
I think you misused the term barn burner. Okay, barn burner is like when it's like both the teams are going back and forth. It's like a track meet almost. That's a barn burner. And usually a track meet is usually when they're running, and then a barn burner is usually when they're throwing it. So I think you misused that term. When I say barn burner, I think it's going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like that's why it's burning the barn, because it's going back and forth so much.
It is going to go back and forth.
For
when it's just going to keep going back and forth when Walker Valley has.
So you think it's going to be a close game?
No. Go back.
But now, I'm saying, John, we're not going to go back. We're going to keep it going for the people. What is a barn burner in your mind?
The barn burner I'm using for this one is Walker Valley they're just going to constantly score. I mean, they're going to keep putting it on them.
Okay.
So I'm saying it's going to be a barn burner for one side.
Okay, I got you. Okay, we have now reached our conclusion on what John has tried to get out of his mouth. I don't know.
Hey, I just babble.
I just babble. You going to build a tower over there? No, I'm just kidding. We're too goofy for this show. Yeah, but I think that Walker Valley is going to win that game. I think it's going to be a soon out for Walker Valley, a soon out for Cy Daisy, a soon out for Lenoir City. I think Ray County is going to be the only one standing, and I'm not so sure they're going to beat Oak Ridge.
Fulton.
I think they'll beat Fulton. I mean, I'm not going to say they're not going to blow them out.
Okay, yeah, no.
The second round, I think they'll play Oak Ridge. I don't know if they'll beat Oak Ridge.
No,
if they get past Oak Ridge, look for a state championship run, because they're bound for it. I'm not going to say they're going to beat Knoxville West, but if they get past Oak Ridge, it's their year.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say. They're on that destiny path, like you talk about. We have the team's destiny,
Yeah, they have a that region. Is it? Are they region 4-5A? Cy Daisy.
Yep.
And playing that region 3. Region 3, 5A, that's a tough region.
Oh, yeah.
You have to go in there and face that region. It's tough. And
that region used to have Knox Central and Knox Catholic in it.
Yeah. And, next year, that region with Saudi and all that, it's going to be shaken up. It's going to have McMinn County, so that's going to be an interesting
We need to go through.
Round.
If the TWSAA doesn't do it in the next 2 weeks, we need to have an episode where we just project who's going to be in what region, because I think that would be a show everybody would love to hear. And tell us if you want to hear that. Listen, comment, like, subscribe, everything we got on here. Shameless plug. But if you'd like to see that, please tell us, because we'd love to do that. I think me and John, that would like, I get excited about trying to figure out who's in the playoffs. John gets excited about who's going to be in what region.
Yeah, that excites me a little more than
excites you a little more. All right, John. Now let's go to 6A here. To me, this is the same. I feel like with McMinn County, I'm not confident in it. And I think when you talk about, these potential matchups here, Maryville looks like they're the only ones that's going to get through. McMinn County might get through. You don't know. It just doesn't look like a good situation for our area teams. McMinn County, it's tough for them because they don't have any competition all year. I mean, I'm not saying they don't have any, but they don't have a lot. If you think they've had competition, tell me where their competition has been, because they had like 7 or 8 straight games this year. I think it was 7 straight games where they scored at least 40 points, and the margins were not close at all. I mean, it was a blowout every single game. They did what they were supposed to do. To me, they just didn't have any competition until week 9 and week 10, or week 10 and week 11. Maryville, Bradley Central back-to-back, and then the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and, last year we saw it. They had they pretty much had the same schedule last year, and look what they did first round of the playoffs.
Drained them. Drained them. Drained the entire swamp out of them.
Yeah, and
not to get political. We're not. I'm just giving a joke there. We're not political on this podcast at all, are we, John?
No, we do not affiliate.
Now, once the cameras are off,
Let's go back to football.
Go back to football. That's fine. That's fine.
But no,
I wasn't going to stick there.
Outside of Maryville, I think Maryville could be the only team we see in that region advance. But the next team to go would be, I would say, McMinn County. Outside of that, I don't see anybody going. Region 1, it should say, has got to be a very tough region.
It is.
I mean, we went.
But you think about it. How many times has someone got past Maryville in the quarterfinals, and as tough as that region is?
If you take away Maryville and get them out of the picture, Region 1 they would send a team to the state, I think, year in, year out.
And I talked to Chris about this yesterday. I don't know when's the last time we had a team that was outside of 1A or 2A in our area that won a state championship. It was Red Bank in 2000. Last time. And that was Gerald. I think it was Gerald Rich Jr. was there that year at Red Bank. When are we going to see one in 6A?
What a team.
What a team, by the way, yeah.
When
are we going to see one in 6A? I don't think we'll ever see one in 6A. When are we going to see one in 5A? 5A is probably our best chance outside of 1 and 2A.
Well,
because you got Alcoa in 3A.
Yeah.
In 4A, you got Anderson County staring right there back, and then you got the other region over there with Greenville and Elizabethton. I mean, it's hard to get out of there. But
going back to what I said earlier, McMinn County's going down to 5A.
Yeah,
that could open the door for them to see.
Because I told John this earlier, and I think I mentioned it several times on the SET and Preps podcast. McMinn County tried in 2018 to move down to 5A because I think they saw what was coming. Can you imagine, John, if they were in 5A last year or even this year? They would be a state champ. As wide open as 5A is. It's not like 4A where you have to get past Greenville, you have to get past Elizabeth. No, it's not, it's not 3A where you have to get past Alcoa. It's not 6A where you have to get past Maryville. It's 5A. It's pretty wide open.
Yeah, if you can get past, the Knoxville West and Oak Ridge.
And you can't tell me right now that if McMinn County played Knoxville West, it wouldn't be at least a close game. It would turn out better than the Maryville game did. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. I think McMinn County, they'll be more evenly matched in going down to 5A.
If they have as much youth as I think they do, I think they've got some. I don't know if the linemen. I'm not good on where the classes are or whatever, but if I don't know if Jalen Hunt's a senior, junior, whatever. If they have an intact team next year, if it's not poached out because they've got a bunch of guys that have graduated, McMinn County will be on their way to a state championship. Now, will they win one? I don't know, but they'll probably make the semifinals. It's not going to be out in the first round. It's going to be semifinals. It's going to be semifinals. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's either first round or bust right now for McMinn County, or second round or bust right now, and it's been a bust a lot of times. But I think you're right. I think Bradley Central's not going to get past Farragut. I think that'll be more competitive than a lot of people think, but they're not. Cleveland doesn't stand any kind of chance against Dobbins-Bennett. I mean, McMinn County, I just don't know if they can get past Science Hill. I really don't. Even with a home game, I think McMinn County will struggle. They played Maryville at home. I don't think Science Hill is as good as Maryville. I think out of all these teams right here, I think that McMinn County has closed the gap with Maryville more than any of these other teams. But it's still a pretty wide gap. 3 scores is still a pretty wide gap, John.
What I don't. Let's see, Bradley, they have Maryville, what was it, 3 touchdown game on that one? They put up, 21 points, 24?
Yeah.
So.
Well, Bradley only put up 10, so Bradley at least got a touchdown on him.
Bradley put up more than 10.
It was 10 at halftime, wasn't it? No.
No,
I don't think they scored in the second half. I know it was 10 at halftime because it was 10-7 at halftime, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, it was 10-7 at halftime. If I can remember correctly, we'll have to see about that one.
It was 35-13. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it was 10-7 at halftime. They scored another field goal. It's 35. So I mean, it wasn't even that close. I mean, 2 touchdowns is 21. More than 3 touchdowns, basically. Min County has closed the gap point-wise more than anybody else have. John, any other thing on 6A before we move on?
No, and one thing to note, that Cleveland number 4, Cleveland and Ottawa meet this week.
Yep, that's not set in stone. No. It will come down to basically who wins that game will be the 4th seed.
And Min County and Bradley, winner takes 2nd.
Yep.
And loser takes 3rd seed.
I think it is important to point that out because it's easy for us to look at this and because we forget that. We have to remind y'all about that, but because we're deep into this like playoff. I'm deep into this playoff stuff. I don't know about John, but I'm deep into this playoff stuff. So the obvious thing. Sometimes John has to bring me down to earth because I know the obvious things and I've known them for a while. So I kind of have to sit there and but yeah, like John said, 2 and 3 in Region 2 with Min County and Bradley Central, that'll be decided this week. So that could change. And honestly, Bradley Central has a potent enough offense that will be a close game, I think. And I think they could win that. I don't think it bodes well for Min County. I think Min County is our best chance of getting an area team in 6A past the second round. But I think Bradley Central could easily beat Min County because they've seen them all year. They played the same opponents all year. They both played Maryville. They know they've seen their toughest game, they can pull the film from. And I mean, it's just that kind of game for them, and it matters so much. And like I said, Cleveland, Ottawa, they'll play. I'm just projecting Cleveland will win that game. I think they're the better team. I just don't think Ottawa has the offense this year to be able to do what they need to do. All right, let's move on to Division II-AA. Before we get started with this, I want to note we have been doing this bracket wrong, and I did not realize it until this past week when Notre Dame and Boyd Buchanan played. So Chris had brought to my attention that Boyd Buchanan and Notre Dame, whoever won that game this week, would likely get the 6th seed in the playoffs. And my mind straight goes to there's not a 6th seed in the East. The II-AAA has changed it. Used to, okay, there's East in Division II-AA. There's an East Division, a Middle Division, and a West Division, okay? Used to, everybody in the West automatically made the playoffs. Everybody in the middle region automatically made the playoffs. And 2 teams from the East region were automatically eliminated. So, the only people that could get eliminated were the ones in the East. So, like literally all these Division II-AA schools, they were guaranteed a playoff spot except for the 2 bottom feeder teams in the East region. Now, let me say this. II-AAA has changed it now to where the East, where the middle, everybody in the middle gets in, and all but one team get in the West and in the middle. So basically, they took those 2 teams, spread it out over the East and the West. So now there's only one team eliminated from the West, and now we see that that East 1 seed beats the East 1st seed, or plays the East 1st seed, I should say. That gives Boyd Buchanan, who beat Notre Dame and rightfully and beat them bad. I mean, let's put it like it is. I mean, they beat them like a drum. And Notre Dame's not had the best year this year. I think they've kind of took a stumbling block since they went to the state championship a couple of years ago. They've kind of taken a step down, and I don't know what it is. Last year it was kind of they kind of just had a bad run, and then they had the recruiting thing, or not the recruiting thing, but the ineligible player that happened. This year, I don't know what's really gone on with them.
I feel like once they shifted out of 3A,
yeah,
3A,
but they had like 2 years.
They did. They also had Kareem Orr,
yeah,
and players. I mean,
but I'm pretty sure Kareem Orr was there when they were in 3A. He wasn't there when they moved to Division II-AA.
Yeah, you're right.
It feels like, and here's the thing: it feels like, and I hate to say it feels like Notre Dame. Maybe because now they can, quote unquote, recruit.
Yeah, well, they're competing now.
They're competing for recruits now.
They would be able to appeal to recruits saying, "We're in 3A. It's pretty much a gimme. We run the Chattanooga area in 3A."
Yeah.
Now they're having to go out and compete with Boyd Buchanan and
because it seems like the last year,
like
I think the last year or the next to last year that they were in, y'all had played them. I think your senior year you played them over at Findlay, right?
That was my junior year.
Junior year, and then your senior year you played them at home and you beat them. That was the 13-1 season, right?
Yes.
So it seemed like after that, it kind of felt like they took it. But then when they got to Division II-AA, we weren't projecting them to do anything, and all of a sudden, boom, they turn around and they go to the state champ. They go to I think the first year they were in there, they go to the state championship. They lose it to Lausanne. I think maybe they go another year, I believe, possibly. I can't remember. But to me, it feels like since Notre Dame has gotten in this situation, they're no longer the team that recruits want anymore. Now, I'm not saying that they don't want to go there. I'm not saying. What I'm saying is it seems like there's more competition. I guess that's the right way to say this, right, John?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not only competing against CCS, Boyd Buchanan, Silverdale now, which CCS, by the way, they're doing excellent in that recruiting game. You're not only competing against them, John, but now you're competing against Baylor and McCallie. Because what's more of a gimme in Division II now? AAA? Or going into this season, what was, if you had said, all right, knowing that McCallie just won the state championship, if you had said, well, what's more of a gimme this year? Going to Division II AAA, where I'm going to get noticed by colleges, or going to Division II AA, where none of our area teams advance past the second round, I don't believe.
No, I don't feel like a lot of these players around here get recruited from.
No, it's and when we say recruited, we're not saying that there's like a whole like, oh, we're going in.
They get recruited. I mean,
it's not recruiting in the sense of college recruiting.
Well, you get Baylor and McCallie. They sent a bunch of kids. Jay Hardy went to Auburn. Elijah Howard's going to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Didn't McCallie have a guy that last year went to Tennessee?
I think so, something like that.
Yeah, and they're sending them to the bids. You got Chattanooga Christian. They're kind of. I mean.
But here's the thing. I think what you're trying to say is, all the good athletes from our area they tend to end up. I'd say 7 times out of 10, the best athletes in our area tend to end up at a Division II school, because usually it's the ones that get noticed in middle school. The ones that get noticed in middle school, you see their potential. They go and say, "We'd love to have you play here," or maybe they play their freshman year at a public school or something, and they don't have to wait that full year to go to that private school. They can just transfer over. The good ones usually go. But I will say this, there are those out there that not every player on McCallie is going to end up going to Division II, or Division I, I should say. They're not going to go D1.
And,
but there's a lot of them that
D'Angelo went to
how many? But here's the thing: if you're not going to college, like for a scholarship for college, and you have the choice between going to McCallie, where you might get a ring, Baylor, where you might get a ring, or going to Chat Christian and Notre Dame. Now, Chat Christian is getting up there, don't get me wrong, where Chat Christian hadn't won a state championship. Notre Dame hasn't won a state championship in football. What's your choice there? I mean, if I have a choice between those two divisions, where am I going? Because now you have a smaller division, and so you're going to get noticed more in that division when you do well. I think that was more my point. But what were you saying, John? I'm sorry I had to interrupt you like the way I did.
No, I don't. I don't really remember what. I think what I was getting to was, McCallie especially. A lot of their athletes, running back, receiver, quarterback, they don't usually go below FCS level.
Yeah.
I mean, D'Angelo last year, he went to Kennesaw State, which is a premier.
What I will say,
FCS
he's a quarterback
program.
too, and he was a dual threat quarterback. A lot of times, it's hard for dual threat quarterbacks to find their niche in Division I.
Right, and Kennesaw State is a top tier FCS program. I mean, they
everybody wants to be a quarterback. Yeah. So you're going to have more everybody wants to be
quarterbacks.
quarterbacks.
I want to be a quarterback, and I'm.
So you're going to have a lot bigger pool for quarterbacks, and that's why you go FCS. But maybe not for a running back, maybe not for a defensive lineman, because not everyone's trying to be a defensive lineman, and so the good ones get taken. That's why probably D'Angelo Hardy ended up at an FCS school. Now I'm sure he had offers to go to Division I schools as well. He probably went to an FCS school because that's where his level was, even though he probably could have played at a D1 school.
I think he could.
And I think he could too. And then you have Jay Hardy, who's, because he's a defensive lineman, that pool is smaller because not everyone's out there being a defensive lineman or wants to go to college to be a defensive lineman. He gets to go to a Division I school. I think that's kind of how they end up. Let's talk about this bracket real quick. Let's talk about this bracket real quick, and then we'll move on to Division II AAA, where we have some kind of movements there too. Now there were some movements here, but because I had the bracket wrong last time, because I didn't know that we were changing the bracket, because II-AAA didn't really put a statement out that they were changing how this was done. So, excuse me. I don't know why I'm coughing so much. CAK, I've got number 1. This is out of the East. Boyd Buchanan would be playing CAK. Right now, as it's projected, I don't think Boyd Buchanan wins that game, although they're hot and they could. I totally could see it. Because CAK, I think they play Knox Webb this week, and whoever wins that game gets the 1 seed, I believe. I went through all these playoff projections and all that. And actually, I'm going to pull that up real quick so that you see it in there. Yeah. I'm going to pull this up real quick just so I have it to reference, because I had everything written down in the Playoff-ology sheet that we have. CAK, let's see. Let's go over here to Division II AA real quick in the Playoff-ology. CAK is projected 1 seed. They've not clinched anything. Win versus Knox Webb, they're the 1 seed. 2 seed, they lose to Knox Webb, and then vice versa for Knox Webb. Whoever wins that game gets the 1 seed. Chattanooga Christian can end up with a 3 seed. All they have to do is win versus Silverdale. If they lose and GCA loses, which is Grace Christian, they get the 4 seed. If they lose and Grace Christian wins, they get the 5 seed. I've had to calculate all this out because of tiebreakers and all this. Silverdale could get the 4 seed if they win versus CCS. They can't get any higher than the 4 seed. They can't get any lower than the 5 seed. Okay? So they'll either have to play, if they get the 4 seed, they'll have to play probably Knoxville Webb here. If they get the 5 seed, they're going to have to play somebody from the middle, the 2 seed from the middle, who is probably going to be CPA at this point.
I think I'd want to play Knoxville Webb.
I would rather. I'm not sure. Did they play Knoxville? I know they played Knoxville Webb this year. What was the result of that one? I want to say it was probably a blowout, wasn't it? I think they beat them last year. They didn't beat them this year. Yeah, it was a blowout on Webb's part, wasn't it?
42-24 Webb.
42-24. Yeah, that wasn't a close game. I think that was the game we figured out Silverdale's not going to be who we thought they were this year.
No, but they're better.
They are better. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they are better, but I thought we thought they were going to make a bigger leap than they did. And I think that was the game that showed us maybe they're not.
They're taking tiny steps.
They're taking tiny steps. And listen, that's the way you build a program. We all want big strides in our programs. We want to go from 3 wins to 10 wins every time, but baby steps are where it's at. Baby steps builds a better program, I think. So, Boyd Buchanan has clinched that 6th seed. They're going to be playing the number 1 seed. They'll either play CAK or Knox Webb. Chattanooga Christian, they could be the 3, 4, or 5 seed, depending on how everything goes. They hold the tiebreaker, it should be noted, because of their win over Grace Christian. So, Grace Christian actually has to win a game, and they have to lose a game. So, they have to go back a full game for Grace Christian to be able to get to that 3 spot, which is why I've got them. That's why I've got Chattanooga Christian projected right now to be in the East 3 spot. Something to note here, CPA and Good Pasture, everything out in the West has been clinched. There's no possibility of any of that changing. So whoever gets the 5 seed will play CPA. Whoever gets the 3 seed will play Good Pasture out of there. And then a lot more middle. And then the other 3 middle teams play out West. So anything on this, John, before we move on?
Ain't got anything for that one.
This one, here's the thing. Division II AA and Division II AAA is even more confusing than this. Or not AAA, single A is more confusing than this. So that's kind of why I try to stick away from it. And we only have 1 team there in Grace. We love you, but you're not in the playoff projection, so we didn't want to have to go through all that just to show you.
They're out now.
I think they are. I think they have been eliminated. That's why I didn't even bother with it, because I think they were at the bottom. I think I even looked at it. Even if they won their game this week, they wouldn't be able to get in.
No. I think the II-AAA did a good job about making this as confusing as possible.
This year they did.
They did, yeah.
They did this year because of the COVID. I think that's more to do with COVID than them.
Well, yeah.
They do. I think the II-AAA does a decent job at making sure that the common Joe, if they go and look at the information, can figure out, although it may take a little time, figure out where everybody's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Well,
they've worked with these formulas forever, so they understand that. So,
well, me and you've talked, and I'd like to see II-AAA take the three-team approach.
Yeah. And I think we'll have some more time to talk about that next week because we're going to have I think we're going to try to have a guest on next week. Don't hold us to that because we may have technical issues. We have technical issues every time we do this show. But I'd like to talk to him. And me and John know this. I'd like to talk to him about what he thinks. I think he would probably be for it because he can see statewide how that would affect everybody. I've got one. I think it's a little bit different than yours, but I think it would work just as well.
Yeah. Did you see mine?
I did.
Okay.
I think I had something similar to that, and we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah.
We'll worry about that. This is kind of an inside thing for us.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Division II AAA. This is the end. Then we're going to talk about, just briefly, we're going to talk about the bubble teams. I think we talked about a lot of them already, so we're just going to briefly go over them and some surprises we've had from this season as far as playoffs are concerned. Brentwood Academy, they clinched. I believe they have clinched completely. I'm looking at Playoff-ology now. They have clinched. Father Ryan has clinched the 2 seed. So the only thing, and by the way, John, I'm getting excited again because McCallie, Baylor, and Innsworth could end up in a 3-way tie. And it wouldn't come down to the first tiebreaker. No. It could come down to the second tiebreaker. Do you know what the second tiebreaker is, John? The number of opponents you have that have a 50% winning percentage or better. So then you have to go through everybody's schedule and see how many opponents. Now, Coach T, you can do this pretty easy because you can go to analysis that shows you the records of all the opponents, whatever. It could potentially be, so now when I project this, I had to go through and actually project, okay, I was trying to figure out someone that's close, like they're right at 50%. Can they win this game and be at 50%? Just so... And by the way, John, it could potentially, with this second tiebreaker, it could come down to a result that a Virginia team has or something like crazy like that because in Division II AAA, they play a lot of out-of-state opponents. Could you imagine an out-of-state opponent a result affecting it?
McCallie played, was it Life Christian Academy out of Virginia? And I think, don't hold me to it, let me go ahead and check it. They lost.
Yeah, they lost
24-16.
Yeah.
So
now I think they have a losing record. Lifeway does. I think I looked at that this past week.
I think that was a mid-season pickup because
they're
supposed to play a team from Florida. They're supposed to play IMG.
Well, I don't think Lifeway Christian has played anybody in the state of Virginia when I looked at their schedule on Max Preps. I think that's because Virginia is waiting until the spring to do theirs.
Oh.
So they're trying to play right now while all the other teams, and then they're probably going to end up playing again when the Virginia does that season. Brentwood Academy, Father Ryan, they clinched. So McCallie, Baylor, and Innsworth. Now, it looks like I projected McCallie and Baylor to be the 3 and 4 seed.
Well, McCallie's playing Innsworth this week, so that
could affect it. If Innsworth were to beat McCallie, okay, and Baylor loses to Brentwood Academy, which they probably will, let's just set that out there. Innsworth had a pretty close game with McCallie last year at the end of the season. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a pretty close game. If Innsworth comes in and beats McCallie, that shakes everything up, and that's when we have to go to the second tiebreaker, excuse me, John. And that's a pretty close tiebreaker as well. There's 5, 5, and 6. But depending on how one game goes, that 6 could be a 5, and then we have to go to the third tiebreaker. So right now it looks like we're going to go to the second tiebreaker. But we could potentially, just for this 3-way tie, have to go to the third tiebreaker before we get something done.
Someone's going to earn their paycheck.
Yeah. Overtime and everything. What's a time and a half of 0, John? Oh, wait. But that's how that's going to go down. This is how it's going to look. Real quick on the other side of this, I'm projecting Christian Brothers number 1. I think they've clinched. I don't think NBA has clinched. I think they and MUS maybe. I don't know if they still play or not. It may come down to the records. I'm not sure. No. It looks like.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. But let me go ahead and that D2 3A still got 2 more weeks.
Yeah, they still have 2 more weeks.
So this week.
Sorry, we didn't mention that to start off. Yeah. They actually, because the Division II playoffs don't start till the second week of the playoffs. So, or Division II AAA doesn't start till the second week of the playoffs because they only have, as you can see here, and actually I messed this up. That should be the finals right there. It should be the semifinals and finals on that graphic. I always forget to change that. This is the entire state bracket for Division II AAA. By the way, if you're looking at this is across the state. 8 teams make it out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 teams. So 8 teams out of 12 make the playoffs in Division II AAA. That's the entire state bracket. So, that's where it is. So, I've lost my train of thought on that. What was I talking about? Do you know?
No, but I don't see a team. I don't see a team coming. In our Chandler area.
Yeah.
I don't see a team getting past first round.
Mm-hmm.
Only team I see that might definitely
McCallie and NBA. That's always McCallie. Remember, we have to remember that McCallie did play Brentwood Academy pretty close. I know it was the beginning of the season, but NBA they could potentially beat them. And if you get another matchup with Brentwood Academy, it's 50-50 to me.
Yeah.
Even with the injury, even with everything else they've had, I think it is. So MUS, NBA, I think the way that works, MUS and Pope John Paul could potentially, like we said, this is the entire state. And we were talking about the play. I know what we're talking about now, don't we? We were talking about how they have an extra week because they don't start until the second week because this is the entire bracket. That's what we were trying to say a while ago before I lost my daggone train of thought. But they have an extra week, so they actually decided, well, if we have this extra week, let's actually use it to make up games. I think we have maybe 4 games, 2 or 3 games, something like that. I know there's at least 2 matchups that are happening that week that I know of.
In our area, I think Baylor. No,
Baylor and Innsworth is this coming week.
This week,
yeah.
After this week, everybody in the Chandler area is done.
Yeah.
Baylor and McCallie both.
Yeah.
After this week, they're done.
Yes, but there's still regular season games being played during the first round of the playoff week because of this. Anyway,
We've still got 2 more.
Yeah, we still got 2 more weeks with Division II AAA.
I got one thing. I got one thing on that.
All right.
You got Pope John Paul at 4.
I do. I think right now, do they hold the tiebreaker over anyone? I don't think they hold the tiebreaker. They were actually at number 2 for me.
They beat NBA, but MUS beat Pope John Paul. Pope John Paul is 2-2.
Is there a 3-way tie there? I don't think there is.
You got Pope John Paul 2-2, NBA 2-1, and MUS 2-2.
It could potentially. I think I projected that it would go to a 3-way tiebreaker because they're opponents. I think that's why I have them at number 4, and then Pope John Paul is the odd man out there, I believe. So I've got them projected at number 4. We still have 2 weeks on this one, so we might put this one out next week, and it'd be completely different depending on what's going on. Anything else, John, on this before we move on?
I'm good.
All right. John is good. John is tired. He's ready to go home. Let's talk about our top games with playoff implications. Not top 5, really. Let's just go through these really quick and then talk about our last 4 in, first 4 out, and our surprises for this season. Whitwell at Lookout Valley. Winner gets the 4th seed there. Polk County at Tyner at Polk County. If Polk wins, they get the 4th seed. Now I don't see this happening. I don't, but they could potentially get the 4th seed, and then Tellico gets the 3rd seed. The reason being is that Tyner at that point would have a worse record than Tellico. And so Tellico would get the top man out. They would get the top man out in the tiebreaker. Then it comes down to a tiebreaker between Tyner and Polk. And then Tyner would be the odd man out there because Polk would have the head-to-head matchup. Sweetwater at Signal Mountain, the winner gets the 4th seed there. I think the winner there will be Sweetwater. And I'm just kind of picking these off the top of my head. John, who you got Whitwell Lookout Valley, by the way? I think we've said this before, haven't we?
I got Lookout Valley.
You got Lookout Valley.
It may change,
And we both got Tyner, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweetwater's. You got Signal Mountain or Sweetwater?
I have Sweetwater.
Okay. All right.
But it wouldn't surprise me to see Signal Mountain. But I think Sweetwater is just a better team. I think their media team really helps them too.
If you want to be a media team in high school football on Twitter,
we gave
graphics,
them a shout out last week.
Listen, go to Sweetwater, do what they do. Go to Ottawa, do what they do. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you don't see, I'm off track now. You don't see Macaulay and Baylor, those big programs. You don't see what Sweetwater and Ottawa is doing.
No.
And Sweetwater for a 3A school, that is some awesome stuff they have.
And they do that every. They and here's the thing too, they revamp it every year. It looks different every year.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it. It's like ESPN. It changes according to what's going on. Hickson at East Ridge. I've got Hickson. The winner gets the 4 seed in this one. What you got, John?
I got East Ridge. I think Hickson is a better team than what we saw 5, 6, 7 weeks ago. I think they're better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think East Ridge is a touchdown better team.
Okay.
But like I said a few minutes ago, it wouldn't surprise me to see Hickson in there.
I think Hickson gets the win there. I really do. I think Hickson has had.
Could come down to
Hickson,
one touchdown.
In the common opponents that they have beaten, Hickson has not played as close as East Ridge has. I mean, it's not even close. I think Hickson had a blowout over Central where East Ridge struggled, or Sequoia or something like that, and they really went to town. Hickson back in the playoff conversation. I love it. Love to see these teams that kind of been down the dumps a little bit. They step up. Sally Daisy, Walker Valley, winner gets the 2 seed, loser gets the 3 seed. John, I've got Walker Valley. Who you got?
I'm going to have to go with you, Walker Valley.
It's at Walker Valley, and Sally Daisy hasn't shown me that they can be successful in the playoffs, let alone against a region opponent who went toe to toe with Ray County.
And Ray County blew Saudi,
and that was early in the season with Walker Valley when Walker Valley and Ray played, and Walker Valley was ahead most of that game until late in the fourth quarter. Ray County scores 2 late touchdowns.
Walker Valley is consistently better too. Mm-hmm. Just like I said about Hickson and just Hickson. I think they're getting better each week.
I think they are too. Cleveland at Ottawa. Winner gets 4 seed. I know it's at Ottawa. I just don't think Ottawa's offense is going to be enough to beat Cleveland here.
No. I got Cleveland on that one too.
Cleveland on that one. I've got them projected.
Come down to a touchdown.
I've got them projected. McMinn County. What's that?
Sorry, maybe 2.
Yeah. McMinn County at Bradley Central. I think the winner gets the 2 seed. Loser gets the 3rd seed. I think McMinn County gets this one. I'm not so sure that it's a blowout. I'm not so sure it's a running away battle. I think Bradley Central is better than a lot of people think they are. I think when you look at that Bradley or that Maryville score, it's very, how would you say, it's very not what it looks like.
It's not a good representation.
Very deceiving. That's the word I'm looking for. Very deceiving. Because I think Bradley Central had that, you can say what you want to about halftime scores. Listen, I'm not sitting here saying halftime scores matter. They don't. But Bradley Central's closer to Maryville at that point than McMinn County was. That's all of our games this week with playoff implications. John, who do you got in McMinn County, Bradley Central?
I've got McMinn County, but that's going to be an old-fashioned rivalry game. Mm-hmm. Can I use the term barn burner? You think
you're allowed to use it if you know how to use it correctly now.
You think it could be a barn burner?
I think it could. And I think it will be a foot race on one side and a squadron on the other through the air. That's what I think.
It's a very fine representation.
Yeah, I think it could go both ways. Aiden McCleary for Bradley Central, golly, I think he's passed the ball as well as anybody. Jalen Hull on the other side, it's going to be run versus pass. Who's better on offense? I think both these defenses are right at the same point.
I think it's going to come down to who scores that last touchdown.
I think that McMinn County will have the last stop. The stop that decides the game will come down to McMinn County. I don't think Bradley Central's defense is what McMinn County's defense is. When you look at the Maryville tape, you look at the Maryville games, I'm sorry, but McMinn County just impressed me with that Maryville game, holding them to 21 points. Yeah. And by the way, McMinn County fans, when the last time a team held Maryville to less than 30 points and then played that same team in the playoffs that same year, they lost to that team, and it wasn't even close. That was Oakland in 2017. Just saying. Let's do our last 4 in, first 4 out. My last 4 in, and this is just overall in our area and these games we just talked about. Lookout Valley, Sweetwater, East Ridge, and no, that's yours. Sorry, Whitwell. Yeah, it was so bad I just started running it off. Whitwell. My last 4 in are Whitwell, Sweetwater, Hickson, Cleveland. John, what are yours?
I don't know, Chandler. What are they? I got Lookout Valley, Sweetwater, East Ridge, and Cleveland.
Okay. Nice. First 4 out, these are the teams that we think are just going to be out, and these are kind of the same 4 teams with the opposite.
It's just flip-flop.
Just flip-flop. I've got Lookout Valley, Signal Mountain, East Ridge, Ottawa will all be looking on the outside, looking in the first round of the playoffs, even though they could easily get a playoff spot if they step up.
Mm-hmm. And I got Whitwell, Signal Mountain, Hickson, and Ottawa for that one.
First 4 out, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about surprises real quick. I'm just going to go through these real quick because it's been a long night. It has. We spent more time on the projections than I thought we would. Grundy County not clinching a spot, but they have a spot in the playoffs, most likely. I think that has been a big surprise this year.
Yeah, I don't think.
And it came down to 1 game, basically.
Yeah, and I don't think we saw this coming. I didn't. Mm-hmm. I thought we would see Upperman, Sequatchie County, Smith County, and York. But here we are.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with I think everybody else stood up to the test. I think Sequatchie County just had a nosedive here last part of the season. And it has I don't think it has anything to do.
That East Ridge game, I think, is when
there were so many injuries before that East Ridge game. And then we had a bunch of them.
I'm not making excuses for Sequatchie County because they shouldn't lose. I'm not taking anything away from Grundy County or York. They shouldn't get blown out by York. And
no,
they honestly should.
If you're in a foot race, barn burner with York, yeah. But
I know when to use that was not a barn burner.
I mean, what I'm saying is in the past they've had barn burners with York.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
York's always held Sequatchie County.
It's always a tie out, but you cannot. You cannot just go through and you can't get beat like that by York. You can lose in a barn burner, you can't lose in a blowout to York and expect to do anything with the rest of your season. Hickson, steady in the race. I mean, they beat East Ridge. They're in. That's a big surprise to me.
It is, and I'm not taking anything away from East Ridge. I think East Ridge will win. But I think it could be huge to see Hickson in that force. I think,
By the way, Josh Owensby, former head coach at Bledsoe County.
And he's started off slow this year, and I guess, everybody thought that.
Same old Hickson.
Yeah, same old Hickson. It's not the same old Hickson.
It's they're in a fight. I'm not going to say they're going to win the region championship or be in the.
I don't see them in the top 2 seeds anytime soon.
They're right in the mix because it's East Hamilton, it's Anderson County, East Hamilton, and then everybody else. And now I think they're putting themselves in that second tier with Howard, East Ridge, Central, and now it's Howard, East Ridge, Hickson. Really,
it wouldn't surprise me next year. Talking about Hickson at the 3rd seed.
It would not me either. We are talking about Region 3-3A, Loudon, Brainerd, Red Bank. Yeah. That is crazy. All the ways you can go it. That's how it comes out.
Behind schedule.
Yeah, that's why we're behind schedule because I went back. Let's not talk about that. What do you think about McCauley?
I don't think the dominoes fell in their direction.
You think that they could, with luck, you think with a little bit of luck, their season could have been undefeated season?
No, I think this is Brentwood's year.
No, I'm not talking about Brentwood. I'm talking about regionally. As far as, who in their region. I mean, Brentwood Academy, that was like one of those things where they're in their region. Yeah, I get that. I don't know that they would have won that game anyway. I'm talking about as far as toward the end of the season. What we've seen here in the past 3 or 4 weeks.
They should be undefeated. I'm just pulling up. Let me pull up the schedule.
They should have one. They honestly should have one loss going into the playoffs.
They should not. I don't know anything about that Virginia team. I don't know.
Yeah.
They should not have lost to Father Ryan the way they did.
No, they should not have.
Losing, like 31-30, 31. That's fine. 31-7 makes me want to sit back and see where this McCauley team really is. Because
Because Baylor even played a closer game with Father Ryan than they did.
Baylor had the lead the whole time until the very end. They kind of made some mental errors. But
Baylor and McCallie, within a span of about 2 or 3 weeks, went from being the top dogs, in my mind, to being bottom feeders.
And, going back to where we're talking about East Hamilton, I think McCallie peaked too early on that one as well.
I think they did too.
I think after that Baylor game.
And I think there was too much confidence coming off of last year. I think when you win a state championship, it's a hard thing to keep that motivation. It really, really is. And I'm not saying that's the problem because they still had a lot of talent and everything. I think they got too much confidence too early instead of – I think they would have been better off losing a game or two out the stretch, beginning, not besides the Brentwood Academy game. Because even that gives you confidence, doesn't it, John?
Yeah.
I mean, you go toe-to-toe with Brentwood Academy, who basically runs the state, to me, that just gives you even more confidence, even though you didn't win that game. It doesn't give you a blow, and I think they needed to, a little bit more of a blow at the start of the season than they did. But
and beating Calhoun the way they did,
that gives you
that's motivation. Calhoun,
maybe not for the state, but that gives you a lot of motivation regionally because you hear all the time how good Calhoun is, how good Calhoun is, Calhoun that, and then McCallie goes in there and beats them, and because people.
I wish we could say that every year. That matchup.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
I would love. Here's the thing I would love to see. I think that there should be, if schools want to, they could elect to have a 9-game season with the option to schedule, because you have the 2-year window, so it's so hard to schedule somebody 2 years, right? Because you have to find this. It fits here. It fits this year. It doesn't fit this year. Blah blah. Every year. They should be scheduled. 9 games should be scheduled in the 2-game cycle. Because you have the games in Alabama and Georgia that are not on the same cycle as we are, I think II-AAA should allow schools to do 9 games and allow schools to each year, or even while the season is going on, be able to schedule a game for that 10th game.
Yeah, I wish Georgia and Tennessee could link up their seasons to where it could be easier for teams to do that. I think they should. I don't see when they don't. What's Alabama's?
I don't know if they're on the same schedule or not. I think Alabama, schools are more concentrated toward the south, and so there's not as many schools toward the north.
Right.
Because you have Huntsville area, you have a lot of schools in that area, and I think there's just a lot more rural Tennessee schools in the south. There's not a bigger city toward the once you get south of Franklin, I'm not going to say there's not a bigger city at all, or a bigger population city. It's a lot of small communities, so they don't really want to play that. If it were, if there were a bigger school, like Chattanooga was right there in Alabama, or, north of Huntsville instead of northeast and over here, you might see that a little bit more. But I think
I'd like to see, how when you watch college basketball, you had that SEC Big 12 battle. I'd like to see 1 week dedicated to teams in Tennessee have the option, like you said, to play Georgia teams and we could call it Feast Week.
Feast. We've had this idea before, ain't we?
I think so.
You have before. I know. I think you're just hungry right now. You're not you. You're not you. You're not you unless you have a Snickers.
In my room, I have all these ideas.
All up on this bulletin. It's like the meme where you see like the guy be like that, just like the crazy hair and everything. He's got the strings going from this bulletin board to that bulletin board. That's John.
The little things holding the
one comes off, everything comes falling down, and then the theory is just gone. He doesn't know where he's at.
My eyes squirt just down in front of my eyes.
Ooh, buddy, don't you love this show? All right, this has been Playoff-ology. Hopefully it's been short enough for you. We know it's been too long for a lot of people. Y'all probably tuned out after I started talking about 3A, Region 3A, and how excited I got there. I'm Chandler Morrison. That dude right there, he's John Boston. Say hi to the people.
Hello, people.
Hello, folks. That's a podcast to listen to. Nateland Podcast. If you have a recommendation for a clean comedy podcast, by the way, Nateland. They're not telling me to say that, but Nateland is a good podcast. You need to listen to it too, John. I think it's pretty good. He starts every episode going, "Hello, folks." He's from Old Hickory, Tennessee, and I like him. Nate Bargatze is the comedian. He's a really good kid. He's got his Netflix special. He's great, man. Anyways, it's not sports related, so we'll talk about this later. I'm Chandler Morrison. That's John Boston. This is Playoff-ology. Listen, you can find it on Facebook. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on IGTV. You can also find this wherever our podcast is found on the SETM Preps Podcast Network. Also, you can tune in every Monday and Thursday. Once we're going to do Playoff-ology one more time because we still have some things to do with Division II AAA. And we'll probably talk about how the playoffs, how the projections came about and how it actually fared when we got to the first round of the playoffs this past week. So we'll probably do that this coming week. We'll probably have a guest this week, too, to talk about the first round of the playoffs coming up. So tune in for that. That is Playoff-ology next week. This is Playoff-ology this week, and we are here saying goodbye and good riddance to this whole conversation we're having. And God bless, and go whatever team you root for.